G'day, how's it going? It's your mate, FailBait, coming at you with a Legends 101 video about making a comeback and how to navigate being in a lethal situation as the defender, as well as some tips for the aggressor when looking to close out games. So when navigating a comeback, there are three things you need to consider. The first are the threats on board, and these should be your first priority because they will ultimately what will lose you the game. The second are your answers in hand and should be used faultlessly in order to mount a comeback. And the final resource is your health, which must obviously always remain above 0. Your health can be used as a bluff, however, to force your opponent into playing a specific way to best allow you to gain advantage of your situation. So for this reason, navigating lethal situations is always interesting because it means you have to be doing two things at the same time: winning back the board and also assuring your life remains higher than 0. So long as you have 1 health left, as Koveras demonstrates in his semi-final game of the TESL Champions Series against Super Thanks 555, you can still win the game. And as we can see from this board state, Super Thanks has control of the board. With Koveras staring down lethal, he needs to now, as the aggressor, deal as much damage as possible and close the game out, especially when you consider he has less cards in hand and his opponent still has 1 prophecy left. Now, as the aggressor, you need to be dealing that sort of damage, but as we see there, Super Thanks the aggressor chooses to trade, missing 3 damage to face. Whether this is a big deal or not will soon be seen in the coming turns. But for Koveras, to navigate this comeback, he must recognize which threats are the biggest on his opponent's side of the field. And with that Soa played, we can identify that the biggest threats are those with the most attack, namely the Soa, which has 5 attack, as well as the last word effect to deal 5 damage, which is important for us to remember. However, Koveras does have the perfect card in the field lane to deal with lethal situations, and that's Barrow Stalker, because of its incredible keywords Drain and Guard. Now, what we see next is an important lesson to learn for all players, and it's that deck thinning is deck winning. We can call this top decking, but I think it stops becoming top decking when Koveras is able to draw 2 or 3 or 4 cards in a single turn, as we see him doing right now. And since the 5/5 is the biggest threat, that very good draw of Shrieking Harpy is perfect, so he's able to shackle it and maybe give himself that extra time, that extra turn he needs to continue making this comeback. So if you are the defender, making sure that you have a consistent stream of answers to your opponent's threats is vital. So whenever you get the chance to draw cards, you have to take it. But despite that shackle, Koveras is still very low on health. That said, he does have the perfect combination of cards. He has a High King Emmerich, which will deal damage. He has Lightning Bolt, which will deal damage, as well as the Shadowfen Priest, which can maybe silence a few enemies as well. But again, as we saw, was missing that as the aggressor, Super Thanks, missing that face damage with the Orc at the very beginning of the video. Did that have big consequences? I think so at this stage. But this is what I meant earlier by saying that using your health as a resource can force your opponent into playing a specific way. In this instance, it forces them to continually attack face, lest they continue to fall further and further behind. As the aggressor, trading when you're that far ahead but with no cards in hand is usually a tough choice because it means, as I said earlier, you are throwing away your extremely limited resources. As the aggressor, every bit of face damage is vital. As the defender, your ability to trade, however, becomes invaluable. The more you can starve your opponent of resources both on field and in hand, the better position you will be in. With that said, we're going to get some pretty nice trades here by Koveras trading his 5/5 minion into the 5/5 Soa. And as I said earlier, the Soa has the last words effect to deal 5 damage to the enemy leader. However, since Koveras is now at 7 health, that Soa may as well not have an effect at all, because it's not dealing lethal damage, it's not winning Super Thanks the game. The next biggest threat on the board is the 6/4, because of its high attack. But again, the Lightning Bolt, which was held in Koveras' hands for the last 2 or so turns, can easily deal with the 6/4. And then, since he once again drew the Barrow Stalker there, is able to protect himself from face damage, protect himself from losing the game. Now obviously comebacks are next to impossible if you don't have the required answers in hand. For this reason, any chance you have at deck thinning means a higher chance at winning. So again, take every chance you have to draw cards. This is because the more answers you have in hand means that you are free to trade as best as possible to starve your opponent of resources and prevent them from gaining control of the board. So long as you have a single bit of health left, you can continue using your health as a resource to force your opponent into playing a single way, aggressively. This plays into your game plan as the defender, since it means their interaction is limited and it becomes incredibly easy for you to deal with the biggest threats while slowly developing your own. And once you are certain you have the stronger board and your opponent is completely starved of resources, that's when you can truly start pushing to make sure that even if they do get prophecies when you're attacking their face, they can't be used against you. So, this has been your mate FailBait, giving you a Legends 101 video about making a comeback and how to become the king of games. And hopefully it has been of some use to you. And I really do want to give a shout out to Koveras, who I think is becoming one of my favorite competitive players, just because he's given me so much YouTube content. But also to Super Thanks 555, who also had a really good comeback in the previous game that is definitely worth watching. So, hopefully this video has been of some use to you. And until next time, keep copying Yu-Gi-Moto, and you too can become the king of games.